talk, we are bringing you, I am proud to just introduce to you, two more innovators here who will give you shorter TEDx-style talks. And I want to encourage you to open up the Attendify app again and go to the Q&A function. And please, following on the heels of Andy's talk, what are the questions that you have now? As you listen to Christoph, Keese, and then Hauke Schmidt that are coming up now, two very different contributors here to this dialogue. One, a thought leader from Germany who is also an entrepreneur, another one who is a corporate innovator leading AI institutions for one of Germany's finest firms around the world. What are the questions that pop up there for you? Okay. We want to log those questions. We want you to feel free to rank those questions as well. We want to see a hierarchy of questions and then distill what was really important for you from those talks. We want to make this as interactive as possible. Here's the unfortunate reality, because we had a late start due to fires and crashes on the highway and Uber app crashes. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut short the Q&A live with the folks in the room as we had planned here. But they're around and they're staying. So feel free to engage them later as well. And trust, we will not lose your questions. Okay? We will answer them as the conference progresses, and we will also bake them into our conference report. Okay? So with all of that said, I want to now ask Christoph Keese to come up to the stage. Christoph is one of Germany's leading thought leaders on digital. He's an entrepreneur. He was a leading executive, leading digital change at Financial Times, at Welt, a very senior Axel Springer executive who is now CEO of Axel Springer High, a consulting firm on digital, consulting with organizations around the country and really transatlantically. So he's an expert on transatlantic digital relations and on digitization in Germany. And so he's written a couple of books about it as well, including a book on Silicon Valley in German, a book on Silicon Germany, and a book on how to disrupt yourself. So I would recommend those books highly. And with that, please, Christoph, if you could come up to the stage, and let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Olaf. Thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be speaking after Andy. And most of you will know that Andy is of German heritage. He spent his high school year over here in Silicon Valley in Simply State. Many successful entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley have German heritage, like Peter Thiel, for example, or think of Alex Karp of Palantir. He was a doctorate in philosophy at Frankfurt University when Peter Thiel called him and asked him to run Palantir. He said, I'm not qualified because I'm a philosopher, not a technologist. But Peter told him, you can do it. I strongly believe you can do it. I'm often asked in Germany, are we missing anything? We are missed out on the first 20 years of digitalization when it comes to like B2C platforms. I don't think that we're missing anything. We just need a bit of a different culture. If we were missing anything, if it wasn't in our DNA, we wouldn't be producing people like Peter Thiel or Alex Karp. So it's basically a question of the mindset. So let me speak about mindset. I have brought a chart with you showing you one market, the market for cameras. The market for the portable camera was invented in the 30s, and the gray bars show you how the market picked up. This is the analog celluloid camera. It peaked end of the 90s, and the digital camera came along where you had digital chips and digital storage chips. It kind of doubled, tripled the market. And then came along the smartphone. And as we all know, the smartphone has many features, but the most important feature is cameras. Just think of the iPhone. Most of the advertisement you're seeing for the iPhone is about the camera function. When you look at iPhone 11, you will see that the slot, which was just a little dot a couple of years ago, is now a big rectangle opening up for 3 different cameras. Now, the market really enlarged by the introduction of the smartphone, but this chart is cut off at the top to show you the lower part of the chart. Let me show you what it really looked like. This is what it really looked like. And the interesting thing about this chart is that the people who brought us the telephone, the smartphone, have not been in the business of building cameras before. They are from outside of the business. When the digital camera in blue was invented, it was basically the same people who brought us the analog camera. So it was Leica and Nikon and Canon. But when the smartphone came, it was none of these companies bringing us a smartphone. Why? Because they had nothing to lose. Because when you bring up the smartphone, you're kind of killing off the camera market, as you can see. And when you are vested in the camera market and you have so much to lose, you're inclined not to do so. 95% of all disruptors in the world have never worked in the industry that they're disrupting. Elon Musk didn't work for Daimler. Elon Musk didn't work for Airbus spaceships. And Elon Musk certainly did not work for Deutsche Bahn, even though he came up with the idea for Hyperloop. So when you're from outside the industry, you're more inclined to come up with real disruption. And this is what really worrisome for German industry these days. When you read Der Spiegel magazine this week, there's a very interesting cover story on the automotive industry. The headline goes from 100 to 0 in very short time because it's changing very, very quickly. When you look at the latest figures predicting the number of employment jobs and the sales of the car industry, it is quite interesting to see what is going to happen. Now, is this reason for pessimism? It's definitely not reason for pessimism. It's reason for really understanding what the consumer wants. User centricity is such a buzzword. When you look at this chart, you know what it really means. Why is the smartphone camera so successful? Because it fulfills two specific human needs that have not been fulfilled by traditional cameras. Need number one is I want to carry all the pictures with me all the time. And second, I want to share them instantaneously. If you really adhere to what the people really want, even without being able to say it, as we all know, Steve Jobs never did any market research. He trusted his gut feeling. Nokia listened to market research, and market research said that people want mobile phones with buttons on them to press them. He didn't listen to this. He just went deep into people's minds and tried to understand the hidden needs that even the consumer is unaware of. So let's go deeper. The interesting thing about the Spiegel story this week is an interview with Sebastian Thun. And he is asked by the Spiegel if he thinks that it's too late for the German car industry or if the market for autonomous driving and for electric vehicles are still open enough for the German car industry to succeed. And his answer is very clear. He said the game is totally open. Google is leading the way with Waymo and autonomous driving, and other companies are doing as well, but nobody has figured out a profitable business model yet. And this is what's going to be needed. You need a business model. And the German car industry is very good in the business of finding good business models because people are paying 120,000, 250,000 for a car. So when you're coming from this kind of heritage, you know how to make people pay. So Sebastian Thun himself, by the way, German heritage, is saying that the game is wide open, but we need to push the envelope and go after it. Now, let me quickly take you to my industry. I'm from the media industry. This is how the newspaper industry in Germany transformed over the past, since 1991. There were 27 million copies of newspapers sold every day, and it's down 44% by now. And this is the most dangerous decline rate, the CAGR, the compound annual growth rate, is minus 5%. The most dangerous decline rate in the world, because you can always beat 5% by cutting costs and by raising prices. But this is extremely dangerous. If you counter a development like this, you're prone to fail. This is recipe for disaster, because when you raise prices all the time and you cut your service because you're cutting your costs, you're pushing yourself out of the business. My company took a very bold step in 2006 and 2007. We invested in our own disruptors. Much of the newspaper business is being disrupted by technological platforms. For example, Stepstone putting out advertisement for jobs and thus disrupting traditional advertisement for newspapers. We started investing in our own disruptors in order to kind of become our own cannibal. This has really succeeded. The blue bars show you the percentage or the amount of EBIT, operating profits, we're making off digital products these days, and gray is our traditional business. So if we hadn't done this, we would be reduced to the little gray bar on the right up-hand side. And most of this here is disruptive businesses, so business that came out to kill ourselves. So we decided to attack ourselves in order to protect us from further disruption. This is what German industry needs to do quickly. American industry, by the way, just as well, because disruption is very quick. And if only 1% of what we just heard on AI is going to be coming true, then we're going to see a very, very drastic revolution on business models. So we better wake up and stand up to the challenge. Thank you very much.
Phenomenal also to note how quickly Axel Springer did this. I still remember stories, we weren't directly connected at the time, Christoph, but stories about how you set up shop in Silicon Valley, studied how things worked here, then took that learning back and very quickly ramped this up. Clearly, much more quickly than most people in the competitive set. So applause here.